One thing I would say is it was so helpful to see what the mission is like and to really understand how vital it is that we pray that God would provide the resources that they could get the boys. The boys are in a rented compound house, and it's very nice, but there is so much travel between there and the land where the girls are. And so it's going to take a lot of money, but our God is a big God. So if you would pray with me that God would provide those resources like he did for that church and the soccer, as Andrew spoke about. It was a blessing, and to hear what God did there. The other thing I would say is to see the love and passion Cole and Sarah and Shane pour into those kids. And I noticed when I would hear bits and pieces of some of their stories, they were things I can't even imagine experiencing. And they all had smiles, or they would love on you, or they would serve us. And you were humbled because you'd say, I'm here to do this for you. But another area to pray for is Cole and Sarah are now the directors of all of it. And that's a heavy weight to raise the money, to love on these kids, which they do very well. But they also have their own family. They have their own children and their own marriage. And as was alluded, it is not easy on marriages. Some of the house parents that were there, they needed to leave because of just the strain on their own family. So I would encourage us to pray for those house parents, and that God would work in them and help them with all this. And it was a blessing. It was a blessing to see that, and it was a blessing, the bonding of us together. And so, anyway.
I noticed you didn't put a video of your motorcycle ride. Darwin broke the law and drove in Guatemala from one of the compounds to another on a motorcycle. They have a video of him trailing behind, making sure he didn't get far enough behind that he got lost. So maybe we can just send that out. Anything else? Oh, yeah. Did that make it out in an email? So Melanie, throwing you under the bus, challenged Mac to drink hot sauce, and then Mac came down ill the next day. So it's, all right, what about questions? Oh, yeah, Linda? Yeah.
We girls always have something to say. You guys sit there quietly with your stories that I bet you are really far more interesting. I'll be just brutally honest with you. In our little room, the conversation went like this. This is awful. This is terrible. No hot water. It's cold in here, no heat. And then 5 minutes later, next time we come, we're going to do this or that. So that was part of our experience. Andrew, I stayed behind one day so I could check on Andrew during the day. This is a secret. I was checking at the wrong door. I was over there listening, making sure there's no noise, no distress in there. And at the end of the day, I went, oh no, that was somebody else's door. But I did do some cleaning and some cooking. And I got to share with Shane Sanderson. He told me a whole bunch about the history of the orphanage and his history, and about the dog, Wiley. Does anybody know about Wiley? Wiley is one of the founders of the orphanage. As a little Shetland sheepdog, it was a border collie that went down there with Shane. And Wiley broke the ice with the very first young child that came there. The child was scared to death. The police officer brought him, and Shane and the dog met him at the driveway, and the dog broke the ice, and everything was not hunky-dory, but much better because of the dog. What else did I want to say? Oh, yeah. Being there reminded me so much of the friends of ours who are missionaries in Papua, and they said, we hate American missionaries. They are so soft. They come and they complain about everything. And that was us. That's all I can think of. It was very good.
The last time we went, we were the only ones that had been there before. Everybody else was new. But the kids were in school. And this time, they were on their break. Is it from like October to February, I think, is kind of their break. And then they went back to school right after we left. So we got to be with them all day, and it was just so much fun to get to spend more time with them. But yeah, it was so fun. What I got up to say was that Cole is so busy. We didn't see him much at all. The children have to go to court every quarter and stand in front of the judge, and their case is reevaluated, whether they need to stay here or go home with their family. And he's got 20-some kids that, so every week he's taken somebody to court, and they have, their doctor appointments and the orthodontist and eye doctors. And I mean, he's so busy. And he has to do the business of CASA. And he really does, they really do need our prayers for being able to keep all of that straight. And yeah, and he wants us to pray that God would send some help. So, yeah. Oh, here you go.
I've got a few more things to say. I want to talk a little bit about the team, just like Micah, Christian, and Mac especially. Like, just so you know, the future is bright. Like, building blocks in heat with, I mean, it's a third world country. I mean, it's not a pleasant thing, but like we didn't hear much complaining, or I mean, it was just a good thing. And then the same thing, like Carrie, Dave, and Darwin, like, just the example, like, again, building walls in third world countries with little to no advanced, construction techniques is like hard. And so just see their example and their willingness to continue day after day was good. And then thanks to Matt for being a good roommate and like making sure I got home not dead, I guess. And then those who cooked for breakfast, and like we had a devotion every morning, and that was a sweet time. And then the last thing, or the last couple of things I'll say is, so I spent time, with 4 boys, like they were out of school, like said. And so Omar, Jonathan was really sweet. I imagine he's a believer, I don't know, but he was just a sweet boy. We really connected. It was really hard when you're not, not bilingual, but like he was just a sweet boy. And then Cruz and Crispine, they really wanted attention. And then I've got to tell a story about Omar the opportunist. So when we were, at youth group on Wednesday, we split into 2 groups, like the older kids and the younger kids. And so I happened to sit by Omar, and I had my Bible, my English Bible, and he said, "Hey, how do you say Genesis 1:1 in English?" I said, "What do you need to know how to say?" I mean, I didn't say this, but I'm thinking, what do you need to know how to say Genesis 1:1 in English? Well, if he said Genesis 1:1 in English, Spanish, or Quiche, they got a piece of candy. So here we are 3 minutes before this test trying to like get this kid to say Genesis 1:1 in English so he could get 2 pieces of candy and not 1 piece of candy. So, and then the last thing I'll say is Carrie must have made the TSA or the DHS, I don't know what he did to make them mad, but like he had to take more shoes and belts and coats off than like I've ever seen. So I don't know what he did to those people.
Well, I really didn't know what to expect in Guatemala, and it was a real eye-opening experience because here in St. Joe, when you want to go to Menards and pick up a 2x4, it's a 5-minute drive, or you want to go get a plumbing fixture, it's either at Menards or Westlakes or whatever. It's not that way in Guatemala. I remember helping out with Cole and Sarah. They needed some plumbing work that Andrew helped me with. We had to change out a couple of faucets, and we had to find a store that even sold that kind of stuff, because it's not that way. A lot of the people survive in these little tiendas, I guess they're called, little places along the city street, and they sell a specific good, either selling textiles or food or whatever. So, yeah, that was one takeaway. And then Mario is the young man between Darwin and his wife. He and I worked a lot together. He was deaf, couldn't speak, and of course I don't know sign language, but it was a real blessing to get to know him. Hard worker. You just sometimes connect with someone, you know, and he and I connected doing a lot of tying rebar, reinforcement, stuff like that, making a lot of mud for the boys, laying the block. You know, Carrie and Darwin, they were up there on the scaffold, and yeah, they kept us busy making mortar for the block. One thing for sure is that God has really picked the right couple, Cole and Sarah, to be in charge of this ministry, because the tremendous love that they have for these kids. And it's just a good thing. So we can be praying for Cole. He does have his hands full. But he, on that major construction project, he has a foreman or a guy that's overseeing the work at the new property. So that's a real blessing. And I think he works full-time there. Yeah, I really liked Mario. He and I know we just kind of connected, so it was kind of fun. So just a real blessing, opportunity to go there. I'm glad. It wasn't what I expected. I was one of those complainers. You know, I mean, grumbling inside. You know, I had to ask myself the question, Dave, what do you expect? You know, it's like the hotel room. Shane Sanderson owns a separate property where we stayed at a former hotel, and we each had our own room. But you know, I'm like probably most of us sitting here, we're used to having a heated house and being warm. And you know, you go in and in these hotel rooms, there's no heat. And it's concrete floor. And it's like the showers, they have a unit where if you turn the knob just right and let it dribble out, it sometimes gets hot. If you turn it on too much, it's cold. You know, Carrie and Sharon, they were never complained, but they commented several times, how do I get this thing to work? Because theirs wasn't working so good. I think almost on the last day, Linda and I figured it out, so. But, yeah, so.
All right.
I'd like to ask you, do you suggest, like the next trip, that others would go? You think that would be, there's benefit in going?
Jenny is drilling Dave about a second trip.
For those of us here that have never gone on a mission trip, is there benefit to going and seeing a project like this?
Yeah. So if the opportunity provides, we don't know when the next one might be able to be scheduled. We give regularly to Casa de Mi Padre, so I'm sure we'll keep that as an option. It was 2 years since the last trip, so if we're able to have some sort of schedule, that'd be great. So we'll see what transpires with that.
I'm glad you asked that question, because next time I go, I'll be stocking up on supplies, I'll put it that way. I have a story to tell you, and maybe you'll appreciate it, maybe not, but this goes way back to my youth. The church that I grew up in, our pastor was a Canadian, and he would take the teenagers up into Canada, and we would carry canoes from one lake to the other, called portaging. You put them on your shoulders. And the first year we went, we thought, oh, this is going to be a great adventure. that was a eye-opening experience because the food that we ate on that trip wasn't your food that's prepared at home. Okay, it was instant potatoes, and you went down to the lake, and you got the water, and you mixed it up, and you know. So I almost starved, and then I also took a sleeping bag that I'd bought for under, keep you warm at minus 32, and it was hot up there, and it was the most miserable experience. So the second year I went, I took a bunch of supplies with me, knowing what to anticipate. So, but it was a good experience back in my youth. Yeah.
All right. Can we field a few questions, things about properties, operations of the orphanage, other aspects to the trip that you guys are might be helpful to know? Yeah, Randy? Spanish is what they're using for basically everything, but there is Quiche, the province, county that they're in is Quiche, and the city they're in. So there is some of that that's in the government. A few children will come and also speak that, but they'll pick up Spanish pretty quick. So Spanish is what they're doing everything pretty much in. I mean, is that fair to say? Okay.
They've gotten kids from another city, like 60 miles away, and they spoke a different dialect. But, yeah, they all speak Spanish.
I think in Guatemala there's like 30-something different languages in Guatemala. They're all very similar to Spanish, but
Yeah, so yeah, once you're outside of Guatemala City and a few others, there's plenty of still of local dialects and some other little languages, but Spanish predominated everything we experienced anyway. Yeah, Lauren? Okay, so the church, there's a ministry called Hebron Ministries, which is focused mainly on athletics. And so they have one in Guatemala City, one there in Santa Cruz de Quiche, and then they have another one, I think, in Honduras. Out of those three branches, this is the first one to even try the church thing planted on top. So it is, it's all kind of an experiment as far as out of this league, having enough people to then operate the church and using some of those relationships to try and get this church up and started. I wasn't one of the guy who led our youth service. He's studying online at a Reformed Baptist seminary to try and get some additional training. It seems like they have an emphasis, at least on preaching and teaching, that has been different maybe than some of Cole and Sarah's previous experience with churches. So there's opportunity. Getting any new church planted is tons of legwork and grunt work and everything else. So it's probably going to be one of those things we'll kind of just see how the Lord takes it and grows it. But on Sunday mornings, they're having regular worship services for the few people that they have involved, and it hasn't yet, I don't think, drawn a lot of other Guatemalan natives to worship with them, but there's a few Westerners that are in and around the area that are already joined with them. So, good question.
They were thankful to find that church because it's much more what they were looking for than where they were going before.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I'm assuming it helps with the church attendance if you suddenly show up with 26 extra kids with you as well. So it's like when Paul and Lori joined Crosspoint, and all of a sudden they went from 9 to 18. All right. Anything else? Well, thank you for taking time to come and hear. Yeah, always feel free to ask more questions. Hopefully that gives you at least another taste of another angle of reports that we give about, what's happening at Casa de Mi Padre, but another opportunity to kind of see another angle on some of the things that are happening. So, Darwin, you can come take it and say your last words, and then
Not my last words, but I just wanted to, normally when we start Sunday school, we have our time of prayer, and I just wanted to ask for prayer for the Restrepos and Guzmans. The Restrepos, there's a lot of sickness in the English church, and some of the one lady in particular is older and really doesn't look good. And the other thing is that for Carlos and Marta, there's been some sin in the youth group, and they've had to church discipline 4 of the youth, and so the youth group has just come to a halt, and that has been Carlos's heart, is the youth group, and be in prayer for them, that God would be honored for them being faithful to act on the sin that's there. Yeah, I'm sure he's heartbroken. So, all right. Well, let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for your blessings. Thank you for this trip. Thank you for the closeness that you gave us and the opportunity to see Cole and Sarah's work there in Guatemala. Be with the McCaulays as they carry this heavy load. Send someone to them to help with all the responsibilities that they have. And Lord, help us as we go forward in the days and months that we remember them. And also, Lord, especially for the Guzmans right now, as they're struggling with having this sin issue with the youth group, that they would that you would honor that and give them comfort. In Jesus' name, amen.
all right. Let's have a few minutes, and then we'll gather back together here in 15 and sing our praises to the Lord.